Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is your look at the astrology for January 30th through February 5th, 2023. Here we are. We are in the sort of crossing over between January and February this week. It is so hard to believe. I think I say it all the time, but I don't know. What are you all feeling? We've got some things to talk about this week, namely, what is this energy that we're navigating during Aquarius season and how it really checks in on a larger story. That's the beauty of astrology, is that it sort of threads these threads back to different points in time, and how February and even parts of January are a connection to October, November, because that's when we had eclipses. Threads back to 2018, 2019, because that's the years that Uranus first went into Taurus, and then also in a way prepares us for the eclipses to come in April and May of 2023. And then we're in the countdown. We'll talk more about this next week. We're in the countdown for Saturn leaving Aquarius. No, Cancer, you guys have been counting down the days for Saturn leaving a very particular part of your chart. But that said, we also have a Leo full moon this week. That's our headliner. So if you're watching live, do say hello. I love that we are a global audience, and we've got Spain, we've got United States, we often have Australia, although not always live, and then here, maybe your neighbor. I'm here in the New York City area. I'm just right across the river in New Jersey. So every week we gather live to look at the astrology, and I say it all the time, the astrology is 50%, you are the other 50%. Astrology is just an energy. It is not necessarily inert, but it needs us. We give it life, we give it color, we make decisions. Sometimes we don't make decisions. Sometimes we are living unconsciously through the astrology. So the idea is to become aware of how we work with time, the energy of time, how we live time, and how do we let it reveal something inside of us. And that's, you want to really get into the deeper side of astrology, is the revelation of the true self, the more that we use it to work upon ourselves and to go deep within, and that's what we give back. And we're going to be talking throughout 2023 and about Saturn going into Pisces, which is actually a very mystical sign. It's a lot of things. There are both sides to Pisces, just like there's both sides to every sign of the zodiac. But this will be an opportunity to get deeper into these, let's say, esoteric, spiritual, subtle themes that Pisces is known for, but at the same time having to confront aspects within ourselves that pull us away from connection, that makes us feel despair. I know that's a big word, but it's heavy times out there. So we all have to reach towards something. But, shameless plug, I am going to be teaching a webinar on Saturn and Pisces. It's going to be Sunday, February 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I know that's, especially for those in the Pacific, it's a little bit of an early start, but it is, you can get the recording if you can't watch live, and it's probably going to be another 2 hour, maybe 3. They keep creeping up on me. A presentation on how Saturn is one of the most important planets in astrology. What does it do? How does it build time? The structure of time. What do we learn through Saturn? Our own lessons, our own karma. But then there's the Saturn that allows us to grow and mature and to build and to reach towards the future. So that will be on February 12th in advance of Saturn going to Pisces on March 7th. Link is in the show notes, or you can go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. We got a lot to talk about, especially if you are going through your Saturn return, age 29, or even your second Saturn return, age 58, age 59, depending on how that hits for you. These are big check-ins on your life. And you listen to me probably weekly. Of course you do. And you know that I'm a big fan of Saturn, but I know that it has definitely been a little bit heavy the past few years with Saturn in Aquarius in its own sign. And I think we can't look at Saturn in Aquarius without sort of looking one sign over and seeing Pluto still in Capricorn. I say still because in 2023, Pluto is going to start to leave Capricorn. It's not going to fully leave Capricorn until 2024, November of 2024. So we've got some big shifts that are starting to happen, and we're not there yet. We're in that work up to that time, but it is officially 5 weeks until Saturn leaves Aquarius. I mean, it was a good segue to Saturn in Aquarius. And what have we been learning since 2020? What have we not been learning since 2020? But before I do that, let me just reintroduce myself. My name is Katie Sweetman, and I am an astrologer and psychic medium, like I said, located here in New Jersey, right outside New York City. And every week we gather live to talk about the astrology, to navigate it. And hopefully there's been some light bulbs during our time together. And maybe it's revealed something in you. Maybe that's something you want to share in the comments. I see some familiar faces. Even if you're not watching live, you can say hello, because maybe you're watching this on Spotify or YouTube or Instagram, but then maybe you're here with me on Facebook. So let's talk about this Aquarius lunar month. This is a lunar month that began, gosh, I'm blanking on the date. I think it was the 20th of January. We had the 21st of January. We had the new moon, and new moons, they open up a new chapter of time. It's like a punctuation. You think about the moon is passing in front of the sun. It's a new moon. The moon is passing in front of the sun in aspect to the lunar nodes. It's an eclipse. That's a larger punctuation of time, and that's why we can go from one lunar month or even into a new chapter with the solar eclipse. We last had a solar eclipse on October 25th, and it can feel very different because it's a different archetype of time. It's a different coloring of time, a different expression. I'm saying archetype because, to go back to the solar eclipse that we had on October 25th, this says that from October till April, we are living through the archetype of Scorpio. And I'm saying this as a Scorpio. It's not an easy sign, and I'm just saying that because Scorpio is part of these 4 signs. They're called fixed signs that govern over our material and manifested lives. If there's life, there has to be death. That's how it works. So sorry. So that's what Scorpio comes in, and it teaches us about endings and how things do come to the end of their life cycle, about decay, but also the decay that is necessary for rebirth. And that rebirth comes through Taurus. Taurus is the opposing sign. So we're in this time where we've got to go through the decay in order to prepare for the new beginnings. We have a solar eclipse on April 20th in Aries, just the very last day of Aries. Before we go into Taurus, we'll have, even though we are starting to get out of the eclipses of Scorpio and Taurus, we will, to go further afield, we're going to have one last eclipse in Taurus on October 28th of 2023. So that chapter, that 6-month chapter of time is lived through Scorpio. That's why things are a little funky right now, and doesn't mean that we have to necessarily suffer through it, but we can be productive with this energy. It's sort of to allow things to end, allow there to be a process of decay that fertilizes some sort of new beginning as we go into that next chapter of time. Now here we are, Aquarius season, Aquarius new moon. We had that new moon on the 21st of January. That new moon, it's like a mini chapter within this 6-month period. But this new moon is also, we would say, between the eclipses. It's the midpoint of the eclipses, and it's an energy where it's a turn. The technical term in astrology is that we are at the bending. Maybe that's the first time you've heard that term. There is a north bending and a south bending. I think we're at the north bending. Do not quote me on that. And sometimes it's called the moon wobble. It's where it's not an eclipse, but there's the energy of the lunar nodes are activated. So it kind of brings in the energy of the eclipse, and whatever seeds that were planted in October may be coming to fruition now. And maybe what we're experiencing is even connects beyond October. We had eclipses in Scorpio and Taurus back in April and May of 2022, and that first eclipse in Taurus on November 19th of 2021. So that's like the bigger arcs of time that we're in. And so this lunar month, which takes us into, I think it's like February 22nd, I'm not 100% sure, with the Pisces new moon, it draws on a lot of these currents, these stories, these energies that have been present with us for a while. Saturn Aquarius. Saturn's been in Aquarius since March of 2020. Yes, March 2020. And December of 2020. And during that time, we are learning lessons. We are working to build and construct through the energy of Aquarius. Aquarius helps us to look towards the future. It gives us the bigger picture. It's about social networks, social issues, social themes, social causes. It's society, it's humanity. There is the pop culture definition of Aquarius, and that is a facet. There is that sort of hope and weirdness, but also this ability to really let's say vision the future that Aquarius can do. But at the end of the day, it is still ruled by Saturn. Saturn's a pretty nuts and bolts sign. So here we are, we're at that like last stretch of Saturn and Aquarius. Saturn will leave in five weeks, and this lunar month excuse me, really brings us back to this bigger story around what have we learned, who are our friends, who are our community, what is our relationship with science and technology, have we built community, have we seen community, let's say, recalibrate or end or restructure. The past few years, we all had to go on Zoom, basically, in 2020. And our relationship with connection and humanity and closeness or separation have really been at the forefront of our experience over the last few years. I realize things have changed since 2020. We are now, hopefully, fingers crossed, on the other side of something. And then there's Uranus and Taurus. And you're like, well, wait, what about Aquarius? Aquarius is a fixed sign. Taurus is a fixed sign. So they're making something called a square to each other. Uranus has been in Taurus since May 2018, March 2019. That's another thread through our experiences this lunar month. In fact, this week, the sun makes something called a square to Uranus. It's the energy of waking us up, getting us out of our complacency, getting us out of our own way. And that's the thing about fixed signs, is that their job as a not trio, quad of signs, their job is to keep things anchored, grounded, unmoving. We need life to be stable, but there's been anything but stability the last few years. Uranus is in Taurus, so it's really shaking up and awakening our relationship with money, income, material stability, material security, even our body, our sense of self-worth, touch, the pleasure of life, the fertility of life. Taurus is a very sensual sign, so maybe our relationship with that over the past few years has changed. So there's that. So we're going to really feel this energy. Maybe, I don't know, how are you all feeling as we go into this weekend and we have I almost said solar eclipse. I didn't mean to say that, but we're going to have a full moon in Leo. So the duality between Aquarius is that Aquarius is about these larger systems and networks that our lives run on. And then Leo is the individual. It's not the I, because Aries is the I, but it's like the I that is colored by expression and creativity and a sense of personality and self. That's Leo. Leo's ruled by the sun. It's supposed to shine like the sun. Say that fast 3 times. So there is this, thread again about what makes us us. Where is our passion? Where is our creativity? How are we burnt out, for example? That's the other side of Leo. Shame. When we don't feel that we can really express who we are because we feel shame. That is like a sun in a way that's inverted. We don't want to show our light. Or this is a week where we have to get out of anything that is taking away from us, that is going against ourselves. And sometimes we are the ones who are really good at going against ourselves. And this is a week where maybe we have to get back to the things that really light us up and give us pleasure and passion and joy and creativity. It's a little bit of a technical point, but in astrology, fire is the first element. So second element is earth, meaning, and this is where we have Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, these are fire signs. We have to have the fire first. A lot of people come to me, and some of you I know because you're my clients, and the question is earth. When is it going to happen? How is it going to happen? How much money might I make? Or, what do I want to be when I grow up? What's my career? What's the choice that I make? These are all, in a way, earth questions, but first, fire. And so maybe it's a mantra for us to remember this week, but first, fire. Because if you've been neglecting fire, passion, inspiration, creativity, self-expression, motivation, that spark of desire, then what good is it? Then the systems that we run our lives on personally, or maybe even collectively, it's missing something. Everything in balance. That's what astrology says. Why we have opposing signs. It's not that they are opposing each other. They are against each other. They complement each other. So we need the Leo in Aquarius season. We need the Aquarius and Leo season. But that said, this is a potentially a big week. There's a lot of bigger things that are activated. Eclipse energy, nodes, the Saturn, Uranus, and we'll do a little bit of a check-in when we speak next week. And this is going to be with us. And I'm saying this also because there was a couple of comments, and at least on Facebook, about how there's a lot of heavy emotional energy. People are feeling down, and I realize I'm saying this from a Northern Hemisphere perspective. It is January, kind of a generally bleak month, but I think that's where a lot of that complicated energy, especially with the sun in the same sign as Saturn right now, it's heavy. Like, where are we going? What do we want to do? Who are we? Like, what's important? And I kind of shared some personal things last week about when you witness a parent dying, it really reframes a lot of the things that you thought were important and the things that you didn't think were important. So as we go from Aquarius to Pisces as we go from Aquarius to Pisces, as we prepare to end the astrological year, or it's Saturn going into Pisces, we are in a span of the zodiac that's about the bigger things. It's not about the eye. It's not about what you had for lunch. It's not about the stupid stuff that we all think is important. It's about the bigger stuff. So we've got to figure our stuff out, put our ducks in a row, as they're saying. And especially with Saturn going to Pisces, make time, build our lives around the things that actually matter and the things that don't. It's not to stop earning a living or stop taking care of your responsibilities, but to make sure that it's actually being fed by something, your heart and your soul, as opposed to something else. So anyway, we've certainly will have a lot to talk about over the coming weeks. We even have Pluto going into Aquarius on March 23rd. So big changes coming up. Let's look at the astrology this week. Just your friendly reminder to listen for your sun sign and your rising sign. Gonna a little bit technical for a moment. Everybody's like, which one? Both, because it's 2 points of data. It's it's almost like an X and a Y. You need that two coordinates, and it gives you the bigger picture. Anyway, well, I'm just being a little bit of a nerd. Excuse me for a moment. So let's look at the astrology this week of January 30th through February 5th, 2023, starting with Aries. Aries. Oh, wait, I missed a big thing I wanted to say. Back up, beep, beep, beep. So Leo full moon on February 5th. That's our big headliner this week. So we're really building into the energies of the full moon this week. And it means that a lot of things are illuminated. In full moons, they demand that we take action. They demand that we seek something. And sometimes we have to quickly navigate, or even deal with something, because the full moon has sort of brought it to our attention. So this is why, to kind of close out my thought, this is why this week there's a lot of potentiality for a lot of things. I'm not saying positive or negative, it's just potentiality. This could be a breakthrough. This could be a breakdown. This could be a turning point. This could be something that liberates you. This could be something that illuminates you. This is something that really makes you face the despair inside of you, and to really nourish something that's actually going to give you life. So now let's go and look through the astrology of this week, January 30th through February 5th, 2023, starting with Aries. Okay. I had a little false start there for a moment, Aries. So this Leo full moon is putting the spotlight on creativity, self-expression. Listen to the introduction that I did, because it really gets to the heart of some big things that are happening in your astrology right now, Aries. And to have a Leo full moon, it's to remind you to get back to who you are, to feed the things that give you joy and give you pleasure, that light up your life. One of the things is that in this world, certainly in the culture that we probably share, it's that we are told that joy, pleasure, creativity is a luxury. It's not going to make you money. Don't do the things you love. We have to make sure that we are feeding these things, because if we don't, then we get a little burnt out. So that said, this could be a full moon that really, gets you back to the things that give you life and give you pleasure, that light you up. Maybe it's a time to have fun. But do think of this time about self, but this is a different type of self. This is the self that comes from you. It doesn't come from anybody else. There's a feeling, a taste, a smell, and how are you putting your, let's say, your stamp on things? And to do the things this week, maybe even this month, that you're the only person that can do it. Yes, there are 8 billion people on this planet, but there's only one you. Even if there's a million Aries, you are your own expression of Aries that is built upon that exact moment of time that you're born. So we have this full moon, but this full moon is pinging off of Saturn. Saturn is in your 11th sign of friends and community, but also the future. That sense of like taking your talents, gifts, and abilities and putting them towards something greater than yourself to share them. And also Uranus. And Uranus has been in your money sign since 2018, 2019. So maybe it's a self-worth theme that's coming up. Or maybe it's actually material stability, material security that's coming up this week. Like, am I safe? Am I secure to be myself, to earn a living in the way that actually supports me, lights me up? Am I safe to be out there in the world, to shine whatever it is that makes me unique? Yes, each and every one of you has something that makes you unique. And you're starting to wrap up a phase that has been taking you through these larger themes about friends and community and belonging. And all of this is in preparation of Saturn's arrival in Pisces on March 7th, which will take you into something called your 12th. And maybe, touching on these themes, especially with Venus in that part of your chart right now, and then the sun's going to go there at the end of February, is about what really matters at the end of the day, what matters. And to back up and to go back to Aquarius and that part of your chart right now, Aries, it's really to vision the future, to hope and to wish and to dream. And as you go through the coming months, you're going to start to clear away from anything that is in the way of that vision. Taurus. So this is a full moon that potentially has a lot of things going on for you, Taurus. But first, let's find Venus in your astrology. So maybe you remember last week, Venus went into Pisces, and Venus is your planet. So Pisces means that you're beginning to round out your time in your what's called your zodiac calendar, so to speak. It's about friends and community, but also, doing community or doing social issues, and in a way that really, speaks to your heart and speaks to your soul and feels like it actually means something. It's a beautiful place. Pisces is a beautiful place for Venus to be, and maybe you're enjoying the beauty of life or the beauty of or hope of the future to come. I know it's been a little bit of a rough time for Taurus. Then we have the Leo full moon this week on February 5th. This Leo full moon puts in the spotlight what's called the base of your chart, the base of your astrology. It's about home and family in a very mundane way. Maybe there's your family's in the spotlight, whether it's your parents or your close family or even your own family, like children, your household. For some Leos, you're planning a move. Maybe you're thinking, not Leos, sorry, back up. For some Tauruses, maybe you're planning a move, or you're thinking about, where do you want to live, or what is the type of home or sort of the circumstances or situations in your home environment that's actually going to support you. This full moon, it activates eclipse degrees. In Taurus, you've been having eclipses in your sign since November of 2021. There would have been a solar eclipse in Taurus on April 30th, and there was a Taurus full moon on November 8th of all of 2022. And so this full moon is an activator, and that full moon on November 8th, go back and think, well, what was going on? And even the new moon, solar eclipse on October 25th, relationships, what was going on? This full moon, it can bring something from that time to a head. Maybe you have to take action. Maybe you have to make a decision. It could be a turning point for you. And then there's Saturn in your 10th, the sign of your career. It's the very top of your chart. It's the title after your name. It's the role that you play in this world, duty and responsibilities. And this full moon really does play off of these, needing to step up to something in the world, get clear, what do I want to be when I grow up? What's the direction that I'm taking my life in? What's the duties and responsibilities that I really need to take on right now? It's just that wild card. I mean, you would say eclipse energy is probably a wild card, but then you have Uranus, Sun square Uranus this week. I think that's the 3rd of February. Could be a turning point for you, Taurus. And just a reminder, and I've said this before, Taurus, is that you're a sign that your instinct is to keep things the same. And there's nothing wrong with that, except the astrology the past few years has said to you that you can't keep doing things the same way. It doesn't mean you're going to stop reaching for stability and security. That's just part of your MO, Taurus. But you need to do it differently. And maybe you've heard that before, maybe you haven't heard that before, but it's important, especially when we have these tense or dynamic astrological points that may activate change and transformation in your life. Gemini. So for you, Gemini, Leo is your 3rd sign of voice, communication. You're going to have a full moon here on February 5th. And it puts in the spotlight, maybe for some of you, you're writers, speakers, communicators, thinkers, teachers. Maybe you're in school. This is a very curious place in your astrology. I don't mean curious to be like, curious, but more like you really, it's a source of your curiosity. And that's what makes you a Gemini. You have to just keep learning everything and trying everything and trying not to burn down the house and at the same time joking, Gemini. So this Leo full moon, it does on a mundane level put in the spotlight education, travel, exploration, conversations, important conversations. I'm saying important conversations because this full moon does play off of Saturn, and Saturn does speak about serious conversations. And maybe with, kind of to follow the astrology back a little bit, Mercury and Capricorn, especially Mercury and Capricorn around Pluto, maybe these are conversations that need to be had, bringing something up that's either repressed, suppressed, emotional, something that you maybe typically don't want to talk about, but it's important. It's important to kind of get it out there, so to speak, because Mercury, until I think the middle of February 11th, I believe, it's going to still be in what's called your 8th. It's kind of a heavy time a little bit right now for Gemini, and continues to be a time that also is trying to get you to answer bigger existential questions, especially with that Aquarius season, Aquarius new moon 2 weeks ago, about what do you believe in, what do you stand for, what do you think is true. And even Uranus, and especially with Sun square Uranus this week, really opening up to your blind spots, because that's the thing about the Uranus energy, is it may be showing you something that is typically not what you're looking at. And that's the beauty of evolutionary planets. But sometimes the shock is that it shows us something within ourselves, in our unconscious, that we just aren't seeing it, we're not owning it, and maybe we're projecting it onto other people. But that said, yeah, there you go, Gemini. What else we got? Cancer. Like I said in the introduction, Cancer, you're counting down the days until Saturn leaves your 8th. We got 5 weeks left. Saturn goes into Pisces on March 7th. So that said, Leo, we have a Leo full moon this week on the 8th of on the 5th of February, and it's putting the spotlight on money, income, material stability, and material security. And maybe you have some bigger decisions to make about money or spending, or is this the best investment for my money, for example. Because the full moon is making something called an opposition to Saturn, is that it may be a moon that's very financial for you, or very financial in its themes. Money, property, spending, investments, benefits, debt, taxes, wills, inheritances, estates. I know it's the gamut. But it could also get into these more emotional themes around, am I safe? Am I safe? What do I need in order to feel stable and secure in my life? But that said, Uranus for Cancer is, there is that kind of energy playing off the 11th. And this also opens up these larger themes about future. Where am I going? What do I want to do? And maybe Uranus is opening you up to a future that you didn't even consider. And that's the beauty of Uranus. And sometimes the wake-up call about Uranus is that we need to, in your case, Cancer, consider things that you wouldn't typically consider, because maybe that's leading you someplace. Leo, you got a full moon in your sign this week, so the spotlight is on you. And, because you are what's called a fixed sign, this full moon is playing into a lot of the astrology that's been with you, if not the past few years, but certainly in 2021 and 2022. Leo, just go back and look at the version of who you were just 3 years ago. I'm pretty sure there's been a lot of movements and rearrangements and recalibrations, and things have been upside down and right side back up. It's just a lot of big astrology right now. That's going to start to shift as we go into March of this year and beyond. I'll talk about that later, of course. But this full moon highlights Saturn's time in your 7th, your sign of relationships. And this is, in a way, maybe a coda, or at least starting to wrap up Saturn's time in your sign of relationships. So Saturn has been asking you since 2020, what is your relationship with relationships? Are they in balance? A lot of times, even though we mean well, there is no balance in relationships. We give, we don't receive, or we get into relationships where we're trying to prove ourselves to somebody else. And balance isn't transactional, meaning this isn't about making sure that the dollar signs add up, or like, oh, I did this for you, so you did this for me. No, it's just so there's the natural ebb and flow between you and somebody else. Saturn actually loves relationships, and this is a time for you to build stronger relationships. And if you're in a long-term relationship, maybe that's exactly what's happened over the past few years. But sometimes Saturn can show us that something's not working. And we need to get, especially because it's Aquarius, really get into the code, the system, and figure out how to reverse engineer something so that the system can work. That said, Saturn, maybe a serious relationship has entered your life. Maybe you have a very different relationship with relationships since 2020. But this is that last run, and Saturn will leave this space in March 7th of 2023. So this is an important full moon in the story, and especially in getting into Saturn conjunct, Sun conjunct Saturn later this month. So No, February. Sun conjunct Saturn. I think it's next week, the first week of February. We'll get there, everybody, I promise. But that said, this full moon in Leo, it plays off of Uranus in your career sign. And this is different for every Leo out there. Not every Leo has done a 180 in their career the past few years, but if you're thinking about it, it's not too late. And this full moon is pinging Uranus and this need to redo, reinvent, completely shake up your place in the world, which means maybe even your career, maybe doing something very different, Leo. Virgo. So Virgo, I know your planet Mercury is still in Capricorn, so this has just been a really long time for Mercury to be in what's called your fifth sign. And so the fifth sign, it continues to bring up this story about self-expression. What makes you you, sort of, I would say, because it's also Saturn or Capricorn, it talks about expertise. Like, what are your expertise, Virgo? What's of value? How do you serve? How do you help? But you keep in mind, Virgo, that sometimes you put yourself to the side, like, oh no, don't look at me. Do use this time to really step into what makes you you, what makes you an authority, what makes you an expert, and what can you be the boss of in a way, but also at the same time to really take yourself and take your creativity and your talents seriously. Mercury will not leave this space until I think it's February 11th. So we got a couple more weeks before you get some fresh air with Mercury going into Aquarius. But that said, Mercury is in the same sign as Pluto. So there is an opportunity for you in all of this, Virgo. It's to really take a look at yourself. I mean, that's the role of Pluto in astrology, is that it shows us ourselves, and sometimes not in a way that we think is very flattering, but it's real and we have to accept it, and really to own the parts of ourselves that maybe aren't always the best parts. It doesn't mean that we have to be a jerk all the time. Of course not. That's not what Pluto's trying to do. But it's to give us an opportunity to transform and to reform. That's and also to find the power of who we are. Mercury conjunct Pluto. I think that's next week. We'll get there. Anyway, this Leo full moon puts in the spotlight something called your 12th sign, because Leo is your 12th sign. You're the first Virgo, because we're starting with you, because you're a Virgo, and then Leo is the sign that comes before you. When the 12th sign is highlighted, in this case it's a full moon, which means that the spotlight is on something that's typically hidden. The 12th represents the world that we can't see. It is symbolic of our dreams, our intuition, needing to go beyond this physical world. That's why the 12th has a reputation for being a very spiritual place. But the 12th is also the reminder that at the end of the day, we can't take it with us. We are spiritual beings in a physical body. The physical body stays here. The spirit body goes someplace else. Another conversation for another time. So I think with this full moon, you have to get serious about the things that are actually truly of importance, add an extra syllable. So this full moon can also give you a chance to let go of the aspects of self that are actually going against you, or are self-destructive, or are an attachment, or, and this maybe is a little much, but are an addiction. You can use the 12th to let go of sufferings, attachments, and addictions, and even like shedding your skin, old versions of yourself. Also, a full moon in the 12th can tell you to slow down, to recuperate, to take a rest, to take care of your spirit body, your energy, just as much as you would take care of your physical body. But it is Aquarius season, and Aquarius season does talk about your physical health and wellness, how you take care of things, how you take care of your day. But at the end of the day, to find the balance between like body, mind, and soul this week. Tall order. Libra. So this is the week with the Leo full moon that's putting the spotlight on friends, community, and it's also pointing you towards the future. So while you're not a sign that's necessarily getting the big shifts like some of the other signs, it is pushing on, I would say, relationships and home, and getting into your connections with friends and community, and also looking towards the future, which I know I said already. So let's go back and find Saturn in your astrology. And we've talked about this before, Libra, but Saturn has been in your 5th sign since 2020. And during that time, this has been a time for you to take yourself and take your talent seriously. For some Libras, this has been a time to define the self, to get into whatever it is that makes you you. For some Libras, this has been a time to get into themes around creativity, self-expression, and taking the best of yourself and putting it into something. And for some Libras, this is a time about children, because that's another facet of the 5th. But as you work through the different aspects of the ego, hopefully positive ego, you've also had to look at the negative ego. Uranus is in the 8th, and it's showing you the times that you self-sabotage, the times that you go against yourself, but also through this awakening of the deeper aspects of self, the deep self, for example. But that said, this full moon is really playing off of Saturn. And so how do you, after all this time, the past 3 years, how do you take something of yourself, or maybe it is a talent, maybe something you cultivated in 2020, you're like, oh, I'm going to learn the flute, and then take that and share it with the world and have that be an act of service, and then having to push past whatever sort of negative self-talk or the fears or the insecurities to really show you in the world. That said, Venus, which is your planet, it continues to be in your 6th. This is a time for you to kind of get really organized about your day-to-day life. But it is Pisces, so it's like, how do you create beautiful, quiet, serene environments? Maybe get a massage or something. But that said, don't neglect your physical well-being at this time, especially as you really try to shine aspects of who you are. What else we got? Yeah, that's it. Scorpio. So as you've been hearing me saying over the however many times that we've been talking, is that you have Saturn down in what's called your 4th sign of home and family. And this has been there since 2020. And this has been a phase of your life about taking family seriously. All aspects of family, whether it's needing to take care of family, wanting to start your own family, or this sort of more nebulous idea around, well, who is my family? Where do I belong? And by extension, tending to your emotional roots, your emotional core, and your emotional needs. It's been a heavy time, Scorpio. Hopefully it's been a productive time, and maybe you're very clear about where is home and who is home at this point. And if you're not, Saturn's got 5 more weeks in this space. The idea is for you to have really this part of your life, which is truly an anchor. Like I said, it's the support of your chart. That this part of your life is sound, it's strong, or maybe it's been through a lot. And that's the thing. You've had Uranus over in something called your 7th sign. And I've said this, and I got a few feedbacks like, thank you for saying this. I think the astrology has been some of the toughest on Scorpio and Aquarius. Saturn, it's opposite Leo. Leo is what's called your 10th sign of career. It's the role that you play in the world. It's so funny because we always think that Scorpio is the sign. It's like, don't look at me. Like, I want to be the power behind the throne. But Leo, look at me, Leo, sign of the sun, is your 10th sign of career. So how do you do Leo in your professional life? Which means look at me, recognize what I do in the world, or to do something that really allows you to express your talents, gifts, and abilities in your professional life. Oh, my dog. So this full moon puts your professional life in the spotlight, and maybe this is a time for recognition. Maybe this is a time for you to launch something into the world. Maybe this is a time for you to get a job offer. Maybe it's time for you to step down from something and to go in a new direction. Just lots going on right now, and it is playing off of Uranus, and Uranus has been in your relationship sign since 2018, 2019. So pay attention to who is coming in and out of your life at this time. That said, just a little quick check-in on Mars, which is your planet. It's still in Gemini. Like I said, 7 months in Gemini. It does not leave Gemini until March 25th of 2023. So you got like 6-7 more weeks of this. But I think that the productive side of Mars and Gemini has been to really go into some deep parts. I think it's been a little bit of an emotionally heavy time for Scorpio, and to face yourself. And you're a Scorpio for a reason. Your job is to have the courage and bravery to go into the spaces emotionally that other people don't want to go into, and that doesn't absolve you from your own work. It's just, unfortunately, that's really bringing it up right now. So what have you faced in yourself? What have you discovered? What, it could be self-sabotage. It could be a dark part of yourself. We all have it, but that's that you take something out of the 7 months of Mars and Gemini. It sounded like crazy for a moment, but that's true. 7 months, Mars and Gemini. And then it's going to bring you into Cancer on March 25th. And then Cancer, Mars and Cancer is going to say to you, okay, what do you believe in? After everything that you've been through, how has the last 7 months shaped how you see the world? So anyway, there you go, Scorpio. Sagittarius. So Jupiter, your planet, it's in Aries, and it's going to be in Aries. I think it's until the 16th of May. Maybe it's the 13th of May, give or take. So Aries for you is a fire sign, and I realize the astrology has been a little bit wonky, but this is a time for you to get back to the things that light you up, that give you passion, that sort of put the wind in your sails, that give you a sense of courage and adventure and new beginnings and fresh starts. And maybe this is a time for you to come back to the things that actually light you up, that make you you, that is a creative talent, gift, or ability. There will be a time shift for you, Sagittarius, in May, but I'm getting ahead of myself. That said, Leo, speaking of fire energy and fire signs, Leo is your 9th sign. The 9th sign is Sagittarius's domain typically. It's about faith and truth and seeing the world, whether it's to do that through education, philosophy, to hop on a plane, to hop on a boat, whatever people did back in the day, and to really discover things. And there is that sense of adventure that's inherent in Sagittarius, and you're going to have this fire energy between Jupiter and Aries and this full moon in Leo. And I think this is getting into the heart of taking whatever it is, your talent, gift, and ability, and sharing it, whether it's through publishing, broadcast, whether it's standing up for something that you believe in, or really sharing your point of view, hopefully in a good way. Because that's the thing about the 9th. It is about viewpoints. It is about, well, this is what I believe in. This is my truth. This is my philosophy. Just don't get in the Sagittarius trap where it's like, this is the only truth. This is the only way that you can see things. That said, you're not getting the energy the way that the other signs are getting it. That said, you do have what's called the Sun Uranus square, and Uranus has been in your 6th sign since 2018, 2019. Maybe you've seen shifts in your health and wellness, your relationship with your body, your relationship with fitness and exercise, or maybe you've made changes in your diet, or maybe it's just you don't work in the office anymore. You work at home. That's your life looks so different than it did 4 years ago when Uranus first went into this space. Maybe the full moon in the 9th is like, what? I can do my job anywhere in the world, and I'm going to do it from a beach. I'm going to do it from whatever. And maybe you're thinking about travel and exploration, and this is certainly a full moon that's giving you the itch to get out there, to hop on a plane. We are wrapping up Saturn's time in the third. The third is about your voice and taking your voice seriously. And maybe you've had to either be the student, but likely maybe teach for the first time in your life, or maybe not the first time in your life. And this is also a time, I think, with the vision of that full moon, it's going to give you a little bit of feedback about the things that are maybe important, the things that are for the future. And, as Saturn comes to the end of its time in your third, to make some serious choices as you go into March. Capricorn, so Saturn is coming to the end of its time in something called your second sign of money and income. And I know I've been saying this throughout the however many months, but that's the thing. You are ruled by a planet that moves so slowly. And so it has a forward motion and a retrograde motion. So you have these 2 points each year where it's like a big punctuation mark in your experience. But that said, life has really been focused on material stability and material security since 2020. Spending, investments, property, ownership, whether it's probably from a basic level, because that's the role of the second. It's like very basic: roof over your head, money in the bank, food in the kitchen. Like, what do I need in order to really create material stability, earth beneath my feet stability in my life. That said, and this full moon, even though, technically it's not hitting you directly like it would the other signs, but it is roping in your planet, Saturn, into this energy with the full moon and Uranus and the Saturn-Uranus square. So for you, Leo is something called your eighth sign. And the eighth sign in anybody's astrology is the part of the chart where we have to face ourselves. It's where we do our deepest work, where we are tested by life, where we have to get uncomfortable, because it's through that discomfort that true growth can happen. So there's maybe on a mundane level, it is about money and finance and assets and estates and debt and taxes. But maybe on a deeper level, it's about these themes about money, the role of money, or even self-worth, and how you can either go against your self-worth, self-sabotage, for example. Uranus is in something called your fifth sign. So I think with the interplay between Uranus in the fifth and the Leo in the eighth is that you have to maybe face yourself and maybe face the darker parts of yourself. And we all have them, of course. And again, where do you self-sabotage? Where do you go against yourself? Because that's the work that's happening between the eighth and the fifth right now. And Uranus, it's going to be in this part of your chart for a while, but, it is trying to awaken and reveal something that is uniquely an expression of you, whether it's a talent, a gift, or some sort of creative self-expression. That said, Aquarius season is taking you through some pretty nuts and bolts stuff, and it's really preparing you for the shift in your personal astrology when Saturn goes into Pisces on March 7th. And then you go into a very different time and a very different sign, and having to really get in touch with the things that nourish your heart and soul, and not just money and the material world. That's sort of that duality that we're navigating right now, Capricorn. Aquarius. So Aquarius, it is 5 more weeks of Saturn in your sign. Like, how are you doing, Aquarius? And I said this for Scorpio, and I'll say it for you. I think that this is, you and Scorpio have been going through some of the roughest astrology with depending on where Uranus and Saturn are placed. For you, Saturn is in its own sign, so it's strong. And that's not necessarily a negative thing, but Saturn, it sort of lays a lot of responsibility on you right now. And maybe there is that sort of feeling like it's a lot, and that it's like, I just wish somebody would help me. And this time, hopefully the positive thing that comes out of this time is that you really know what you're made of. You really know what you can handle. You really have a strong sense of self-reliance, or a sense of leadership or self-governance, for example. But then there's Uranus down in your fourth. And that's, I think, why it's been hard, because Uranus has the fourth. The fourth is about home and family. It's about sentimentality, the past, our connection to the past. And Uranus has zero sentimentality. And so maybe your home environment, your living situation, whether it's like the physicality of where you live, or the emotionality of where you live. It is very different here in 2023 than it was in 2020, 2019, 2018, which probably feels like a different country at this point. Maybe you live someplace very differently, or maybe your relationship with your inner self or feeling like you can actually come into this world, come into this life is very different. That said, this full moon is in your relationship sign. Your relationship sign is Leo, and so this puts the spotlight on other people in your life. So if you are in a romantic partnership, this is putting the spotlight on your romantic partnership. If you're not, it's about other people coming into your life, or maybe even starting a relationship or somebody coming into your life, but it's playing off of these big players, Saturn and Uranus. So this could be a full moon that is a big turning point for you, because it also picks up on eclipses, whether it's changes in the home with eclipses in Taurus or changes in your career with eclipses in Scorpio. This is a big one. Take care of yourself, Aquarius. Oh, and happy birthday, Aquarius. Pisces, last but not least, Pisces. So let's start with Jupiter. Jupiter is your planet. It continues to go through Aries. It's going to be in Aries until it's like May 15th, 16th, give or take. And so this is a time for you to really focus on your material life, material stability, material security, spending, how you earn a living, what's important and what's of value to you, even self-worth. But that said, it's Aquarius season, and Aquarius season brings you to the conclusion of Saturn's time in Aquarius. And this has been 3 years of Saturn in Aquarius, which is about bringing you to the end of a major chapter in your life, a major cycle. And this is, and you've heard me say this, and I'll say this, I feel like I had this conversation with a client last week. This isn't like on March 7th, you've got to figure out like a lot of huge things by March 7th. No, it's, I think we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace, but it's just to allow this time to be the fullest of what it can be, to release the past, to let go of things that we do not want to bring with us into our life come March, when Saturn goes into Pisces and you start a new time and a new 30-year cycle in your life. So how do you use Aquarius season to rest, to reflect, to meditate, to listen to your higher guidance, to hear your higher guidance? But that said, this full moon is in Leo, and Leo is your 6th sign of health and wellness. It's like the command part of your astrology, really taking care of the details of day-to-day living, making sure you brush your teeth, you go to work, everything organized. So it's a very, in a way, nuts and bolts practical moon. And maybe because Aquarius season is so ethereal for you, this is a full moon for you to really get to what's important and to take care of your human life and to get things organized and to make some big decisions, maybe even big decisions about your health and your wellness. This full moon is playing off of Uranus. It's in your 3rd. It's maybe something about voice and communication, or information, getting information, receiving news, for example. Or maybe it's about making different choices that then impact your day-to-day life differently. That said, it's like I said, it's the end of a big cycle for you, Pisces. We'll have lots to talk about in March. And there you go. That is your look at the astrology of January 30th through February 5th, 2022. My name is Katie Sweetman. You can follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on, Spotify. And I'm doing that Saturn webinar. I'm doing the Saturn and Pisces webinar on February 12th, so you can sign up for that. You can also get the recording if you can't join me live. And always love seeing you all week by week. And again, I know some of you are my clients. You can book a consultation with me, empoweringastrology.com. So there you go. That's your look at this week. I'm sure we'll have lots to debrief on next week. And until then, happy February. I will see you all later. Bye-bye.